Is my mic working now? Hey, look at that. Harvest Thoughts 2 Electric Boogaloo. I'm okay with this video getting less than 2,000 views, but I'm just like shit. I've tried to write replies to most of this negative stuff that I've seen and mass comments that I've seen of people, but I'm shit. As you could tell from this video, I'm shit at putting what I'm trying to think of into words. So this is the best analogy I've thought of. I'm gonna try and explain it, but I'm really bad, so just bear with me. What about... Here's what I think how the current game is, like, with Harvest in the game, for gear, right? You start the game, right? You get gear that gets you basically through the end game, through the through the axe, right? You get your leveling gear. You hit maps, right? You buy about 10C worth of gear by the time you hit maps to res cap and get yourself to red maps, and that's this point. And at this point, you like, well, this is me personally. I buy bases or whatever I want for what I actually want, and then I either fossil craft them or just buy my items finished, and then so that's like that. And here's like red maps endgame. I stop upgrading my character. 3 steps and I'm done. What I think the harvest changes will do is just add another step here. So I'll do my leveling step. I'll buy my 10C worth of items from trade step to get me to red maps. And then, instead of me just crafting my perfect items with harvest on influence bases easily forever, there's just 2 steps instead of 1 step. So it'll just increase the step to get to endgames, aka perfect gear for your build. So my next step would probably be, because you can't harvest craft on influenced items, or at least in certain situations. Basically, as far as I can tell, the changes make it so having a perfectly crafted influenced item like an explodey mod chest or something is going to be harder to make. But you can still craft on normal rares relatively fine. It's going to make fixing rare, like, it's the items that I'll buy for 10C at this stage of Poe trade or whatever, I can make better ones with harvest crafting. With the new harvest crafting, I can make better ones. So my next upgrade point, I'm at red maps. Like, but if I'm having difficulty still and I need better gear, I could harvest craft better gear. But I can't harvest craft influenced gear. And to make truly best endgame items, I need to do it on influenced gear. And to do that, I need to do different types of crafting, whether that's fossil crafting. You can still do certain types of harvest crafting, but it's going to be harder to do. And it's going to be more expensive. Like, this is my free gear. This is my 10C gear. This gear, I don't know. I typically, when I play the game, I don't even buy gear for more than an X. So I don't know, we could call this like 10x gear even at this point. So then, this is the harvest crafting step. And people are nerfed. People are upset that this step, this endgame step, is no longer, I don't know what I'm trying to draw here. They're upset that this step is no longer the harvest crafting step. This is now the harvest crafting step. And now we have a step beyond that, which is endgame crafting, which is how we had it before harvest was a thing. It's like fossils, it's like bloody metamorph. It's not metamorph, it's the essences, fossils, all this shit. It just adds another step you have to do to get to true endgame of having a broken build. The game's still playable on 10C gear, the game's still playable on, like, harvest crafted gear, the game's still playable on fucking leveling gear if you're, like, got a really broken build. But all that the harvest changes do is add another step to a truly perfect endgame broken build. And this will be like influence modifier, explodey, +1 curse, you know, all the broken shit. And all this is doing is adding another step between this and this. That's what I think the harvest change is gonna do. I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I am okay with it. I am okay with Harvest Manifesto. I'm okay with the changes because I don't, like, care. I'll adapt. I don't give a shit that Tornado got nerfed. I still played Tornado this league because it was broken in Heist and it got balanced to still be a really good build, and it's probably still a really good build. I'll probably play Tornado, whatever the fuck the next league's called, like Emancipation or whatever they called it. Ultimatum. I'll probably play Tornado in Ultimatum. All the harvest changes do is add another step to get truly broken gear. That's in my opinion. So now this will be like explode. That's what everyone has for their amazing endgame gear, is explodey gear. Just adds another step. That's the best analogy I can think of. Current system, new system, okay? That's that's my 14 minutes of what I was trying to say in this, best summarized in a really shitty JPEG picture. Anyway, now I'm going to skim through these comments like I skimmed through the manifesto and answer some shit. Shall I? So stop watching now if you don't care, but this is just like a really simple video that I'm going to put up, and yeah, something. Pretty much the reason why I made this video is because I couldn't honestly try and comprehend not what you were saying, but how I could phrase a response. Something, I bet you think lab is good how it is. No, lab's shit how it is. Lab's garbage. Also, the lights went out in my room, and I haven't replaced them because I don't know where I can get the bulbs, so I'm living as a dark human. But no, lab's garbage. I think also reading some of these people, how they're defending how Harvest is, I feel like you're crafting wrong. Like, I don't know about you, but I get a base, right? And it's relatively decent. It's not good. It could be way better. I'm not gonna attempt to craft it knowing that the possibility to break it is a thing. The whole throw a nulls and throw X on it. This is how GGG intends us to be crafting. No. You don't do that. You just stop, and you use that item, and then you buy another base, and then you try and craft this new base. I feel like you've never played a build with uniques. When you want a perfect unique, but you don't want to pay for it, you buy a shit one and you divine it. Let's say you get 75% to the max roll. So if it's a roll that goes from 0 to 100 and you get 75, that's a good unique. You don't then divine that again. You buy another shit unique and divine that. And then when that new unique you bought goes above 75% on that roll that you wanted, you then use the new one and you take your old one and then you can either sell it or you can divine it and then try and gamble your way up. I feel like everyone who's complaining about harvest crafting are doing this to their items. Like, you get a base and you craft it up to have like 2 really good mods on it, and this is 2 out of 6 possible really good mods, but 2 really good mods. Now you can gamble and brick it, or you can buy another base. 2 out of 6 is really easy to get to. You can buy another base, get to that 2 out of 6 again. Now you've got 2. So now when you craft and have the opportunity to absolutely destroy your item, you've got a backup, right? You're supposed to, like, I don't know, I mean, maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe you can play and suffer how you like, but I don't see how the crafting, you've got to build in, like, safety nets for yourself, right? Do people not do that? I could see why you'd get upset about harvest crafting because it removes your safety net. But if you could just build your own safety nets. Like when I made all those explodey chests, that video. All those explodey chests I was crafting, I had already made the chest. I was just showing you that to show that you should have multiple backups for when you want to hit something. Like, I hit it in the first time, sure, but if I didn't hit it in the first time, the joke was that I'd pull out another base and try and hit it again, and pull out another base and try and hit it again. Because you have multiple things of what you're trying to hit, and then it just makes sense to have backups. Like, Anyway. Harvest for leveling, I think that should be enabled. That's a really good idea. Yep, I haven't played Last Epoch, like, totally looking forward to trying it out. After I saw Yoji's video where he was like comparing PoE crafting to Last Epoch crafting, I really want to play Last Epoch. The only problem is, it's probably one of those things where I know I'm probably going to enjoy it, like Stardew Valley and Factorio, that I just never end up playing it because I know it'll always be there as something that I can do to enjoy. I never treat myself, you know? Never go out of my way and do something. I feel like I'm just stirring up things that no one cares about anymore because the Reddit has moved on from hating GGG after they put out a teaser to like try and shut everyone up. Now everyone's like, man, I really wish this is in PoE 2. Man, there's a PoE 2 logo at the end of this. That's really good. I'm really looking for... PoE 2 isn't going to fix all your problems. PoE 2 is just like 2 game mechanics and a campaign. That's it. Right, sure. Comment to get the tingly feeling. Didn't read exactly. I mean, I can understand the points of views of how harvest crafting going away. Like, would you rather they just delete it entirely? I'm not saying like, oh, if you can't. I'm not gatekeeping harvest crafting. I'm just, ah. Oh, you should know. I mean, you probably know this, and you could probably think for yourself. But most of the people who are against the harvest changes, not all of them, Nowhere near the majority, but some of the people who I've seen complaining about the harvest changes, some of the people's the best word I can think of them. They're trying to drum up hate for the changes because the changes affect them because they're endgame players, and they're trying to convince the majority of the players that aren't endgame players. Like, I hate to break it to you, if you're in maps, you're a minority in the player base. You know that, right? If you're in red maps, you're in the 1%. That's how that works. Like, for the amount of players that are in this game, you're better than you think you are, right? The true endgame multi-mirror crafting harvest bastards are trying to convince this is like how it is in real world politics, like real world economy. The 1% rich motherfuckers are trying to convince the bottom 95% that this harvest change is going to affect you when it just plain isn't. It just plain isn't. People, you guys aren't mirror crafting items. That's not the point. And I'm a trash player, which is why I'm okay with saying that I can realize that the harvest changes, the harvest nerfs aren't really gonna affect me. And you're gonna go, it's not gonna affect you because you're an endgame player and you'll get the loot any way you want. You obviously haven't actually seen me play the game. I'm shit at this game. My gear is trash. I fix my flasks when I'm fighting Cyrus, and when I say fighting Cyrus, I mean I die to Cyrus, brick all the portals, don't give a fuck, move on with my life and go, man, maybe I should get a bleed flask. And then I don't, you know? I don't even know if Cyrus has bleed. I'm shit at this game. And if I can look at the changes and see that it's not going to affect me because I don't make mirror tier items and I don't fucking care, I think it's a good thing that they're splitting up this last step, right? From a 10C step here, this is the 10C one, and they're splitting up this endgame step into 2 steps. I think that's a good change. That's the whole moral of this story is I think that's a good change. And I can, yeah, if I was a guy that made multiple mirrors and enjoyed making multiple mirrors on gear, like day fucking 4 or whatever like that, and then price fixing mirrors and then buying out the market of mirrors and then being a cunt like that, sure, I'd be upset. And if I had viewers and I was upset at something, I would try and, like, manipulate the market because I have to be at that point when I'm doing that. You're already manipulating the market. Who cares? I just don't. I just don't get it. What am I even talking about? Nothing at this point. It's 4 a.m. Why am I not sleeping? Because I got ambushed by a bunch of blood-sucking parasites, and I can't sleep. Can you see my bandages? Yeah. I'm covered in itchies, and I can't sleep. I don't know, man. Am I even gonna put this video up? I'm gonna put it up for a day and then unlist it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. Something something, let's go through your dot points. These aren't dot points, but I'm going to summarize everything you're saying into single sections and go through your dot points. You changed my mind a bit, something something, good, increment upgrades, good to good, just did it the wrong way, clearly. Yeah, I agree that they announced it the wrong way. They shouldn't have announced it now, they should have announced it in the patch notes. That's when they should have announced it. PoE isn't loot-based, it's economy-based. I don't think it's loot-based or economy-based. If it was economy-based, we'd have a trading system that isn't cancer, and if it was loot-based, we'd have loot on the ground that isn't cancer. They're gonna fix one of these things, probably with their, like, better loot, 10 less rolls, better loot, 10 less items on the floor, better loot thing, and then it might become a loot-based ARPG. It's definitely not an economy-based ARPG. Definitely not at all. Trading on Discord won't stop. I agree. People spamming harvest crafts won't stop because you'll still have valuable crafts. I agree. You can still effectively target augment prefixes. Can we change something like that? Curse, influence, chest. I agree. Crafting isn't dead, despite everyone saying it is. Difference now is that exile price is going to skyrocket because you need to throw them at crafting bench half a dozen times per metamorphs. I disagree. Were you around, like, before Harvest was a thing? The whole process is convoluted as fuck. I agree, but I don't agree at this. I mean, X prices, who knows what they're going to be, depending on, like, the league mechanic. We could get another, like, heist or something like that. But the way that GG said that they didn't want to remove the annulling and exalting shit, that still happens even with harvest crafting. The difference is Harvest enabled you to add or remove like fire and cold and stuff. Like you'd get your it changed the order at which you like annulled and X slammed, if that makes sense. Instead of like having an item that's 4 out of 6 mods perfect and you need to get the last 6 mods, and then in the olden days you'd have to X annul it, right, to get a finished item. Or you'd have like one of my guildies got an item that's like a 5 out of 6 drop perfect, and he needed to get that last mod perfect, so he crafted it in standard with a whole bunch of mirror cunts, and it was like imprinting, X slamming, re-rolling the imprint, X slamming, and like do that 100 times and melt a whole bunch of money. That's no one crafts like that. Like 10 people, like 12 people maybe craft like that. That changed in Harvest because you'd then do your annul shit with transmutes and alts and regals. And you wouldn't do them with X, right? Because you'd get something that you knew you'd get like 3 to like 4 even. I went for 2, 1 to 2 harvest mods you knew you could hit with add removes, right? And then the shit that you couldn't hit with harvest mods, you'd hit on the item beforehand. And so you'd spend alts, which is why they disappeared from the fucking economy and why they became so expensive. You'd spend all your alts crafting what previously before harvest you'd have to do with X, crafting something to get like 2 out of 6 perfect mods, regal it up, hopefully hit something you can remove with harvest, and then spend your last 4 sockets harvest crafting to get that to be a perfect item. It just flipped the way that you'd craft. So now it's going back to the world of getting a relatively good item first and then trying to craft it in different ways versus getting a good item in different ways with ults and then trying to craft it with harvest. It's going back to being shit, but to get a good item to begin with, you can still do with harvest. So now to get your item good to the point where it's usable, you can do with harvest, and then to finish it, you do with exalts. It's not saying pick a crap item off the floor, X into T7 life, guess you're fucked, you might as well scour that, fucking regal that up, and then X into T1 life. That's not what it's saying. It's, you know, the fossils, there's so many different ways to craft in this game to get really, really, really good items. The point is you now can't make them perfect items with harvest. You use the harvest as a method to get a really good item, and then you finish it with X. And you use the harvest to get 3 really good items, and then you try and finish them with X, and then the best one of the results you then use, and then you use the 2 bases to then try again, and then you can do it again and again. You're not bricking your items. If you're bricking your items, you're crafting wrong. I don't understand how many people need to hear that, but it's not going to fix. Not only is the fix not going to change anything about intermental upgrades, I got this great JPEG here you need to look at. And also, I should make a new one that's like explaining like how you start with, if you're starting with one thing with 2 really good mods on it, 2 out of 6 mods, and then you're trying to craft it to make it better and you destroy those 2 mods, you're doing it wrong. You need multiple bases with multiple attempts to hit the one really good thing because you know the crafting system is fucked. You're like stepping into traffic and then complaining that you get hit by a car. You know? You're supposed to like look both ways and have multiple ways to cross the road. Kind of, this is a shit analogy, but it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like you're just expecting things to be given to you instead of setting up. You're gambling instead of playing. You got all your eggs in one basket instead of splitting up your eggs into multiple baskets, which you're then valing, and then one of them doesn't break, and then that's the one you use, and then you get more baskets. No. It's only hurting the regular Joes and not the endgame chats. Incorrect. Because deterministic crafting harvest still gives the only viable option for many people. It's supposed to. It's supposed to be the viable option for most people. It's not supposed to finish items. It's supposed to help you get items halfway. I'm bringing it back. I'll keep drawing on it. Harvest crafting is now the 3rd step and not the 4th step. As it is before the changes, it was the last step, and that's a bad thing. There needs to be another step towards a perfect item. It's splitting up this. It's ruining. It's making most players who used Harvest. Here's a great way to make this fucking work. Most players. I can't get rid of it. Most players who used Harvest, you 80% of the players, 95% of the players that use the whole level item, 10C item, harvest item, level item, 10C item, harvest item, endgame item. The endgame players and you were both on this step, but it was already this. It was already 2 steps. Because you are only getting to this step. Because most of the people that were using harvest were only getting to this step, right? Most of the people that were using harvest weren't making mirror tier items with it. Most of the people were just doing the harvest crafting step. So the changes make it harder to get to this step. It's only affecting the endgame mirror tier people. It's like the harvest changes are only nerfing the endgame players because most people are only getting to this step to begin with, and this step is still possible with the changes. Does that make sense? It's splitting the step and making a new step, but it's not affecting all the casuals who are using harvest because they can still use harvests in the way that they were originally. Sure, they can't do it on fucking influence basis, but that's a good thing. It gives you another it gives you another save point to creating your good gear, right? Does that make sense? Oh, it makes sense in my head, but I'm so shit at putting things into words. That's why I failed at everything I've ever done in my life. It gives you another stepping point. So instead of like having a base and trying to make it a mirror tier item, that's not what you do. You have multiple bases and you try and get it up a step. And then once you get to this step, you've got one base here. Are you going to try and make it the next highest step on the list using crafting? Of course not. You wait until you get another item from shit tier to match this, and now you've got 2 possible things to get to a tier higher in your crafting. And then you attempt it with one and it doesn't work, so then you've got this bricked one here on this step. And then you attempt it with this one and it doesn't work, so then you try this step again and try it again until you've got like 3 that you can try it with, and then out of all of these you try them again and again and again, and then maybe one of them works, so now you've got one thing here that you can use. You're not crafting over your one base over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And if you get to the point where you've harvest crafted your really good endgame rare item, what now? Do you quit the game? You're done? No, you've got another step that you can now achieve, which is a really, really, really good, well-crafted influenced item that's an option. It's not a necessity. You don't have to make mirror items in the game to play all of the content. I bit my fucking lip. Oh my god, I'm gonna be feeling that for years. Oh man. You don't understand how much pain I am in all different places in my body right now, and I bit my fucking lip. God damn it. It's creating another stepping stone that's optional, and it's only nerfing the people that are already at this stage that can get there so easily. It's not nerfing the... I mean, I'm glad Reddit's over it, and I'm probably never gonna look at... I'm just done. I'm done using Reddit because of the fucking negativity. I'm not that, like, I'm, like, ignoring your opinion and shit. I'm just ignoring the hatred and negativity at this point. I think that'd be a nice thing to do. You think you're as out of touch as GGG? It's not a bad thing for SSO. You think I'm as out of touch as the people that love and make the game as their career choice? I might be out of touch, sure, because I'm a crap player and not in the top 1%. I understand that. I know that I'm a shit player. You don't know you're a shit player, apparently. But thinking that GGG are out of touch, in some cases, sure. In this case, probably not, though, considering they have all of the background knowledge. There's like 100 builds in the game that they know are broken, but they know the community haven't discovered yet, and they're balancing around that so that if someone ever actually does find one of those builds, they can play it throughout the league without it getting nerfed halfway through, like the Harvest Delirium Aura bug thing. Like, they didn't know about half the skills in the game being leveled by those gems, because it wasn't intended that way. But normal herald stacking and shit was intended, so they know of all these different ways to make builds that are broken that players don't know of, and they have to balance everything around everything already existing and everything that would exist and everything that can exist that players don't like. I think GGG are in touch with their game, otherwise things would be going poorly. I think GGG are out of touch with loot boxes, MTX, and gambling and all that kind of fucked up shit, which I think shouldn't be in the game, but it's not a bad thing for SSF players. Some non-trade pleb in Trade League who spend 40 hours making one piece of decent gear deterministically. I bet you think Labby, Helm, and Chance are in a great spot. Only 61 hours and over is to get the one you want. Are you doing lab to get lab enchants? You shouldn't be doing lab to get lab enchants. That's not how that works. Oh my god. Okay. As weird as it seems, you don't do lab to get the lab enchant you want. Either buy it as a base, or you buy a base and then use fossils that give you lab enchants on it, and you spam them, and you basically pay to skip lab. You're paying for like the convenience. Lab enchants in lab are only there for as a reward for people that are running lab. You're not supposed to do lab to get your lab enchants. That's just an extra bonus for people that run lab. An extra loot. It's an extra reward chest at the end for them. They use them on really pre-rolled rares, really well-rolled rares, or uniques that have a generic like meta appeal, and then they can hit something and get a reward out of it and make money. It's not You're not supposed to actually be running lab to get your enchants on hats. On boots, sure, why not? On hats, no. Oh, you need to win PoE as a headhunter. Depends how you get enjoyment. And even in 3.13 Harvest, kitting out your character with 5 awesome mod in-game gear is going to take longer than getting a headhunter. I agree, but only because in current economy, how easy it is to get headhunter. 61 hours in lab when, let's say, you could be gaining 100 chaos an hour running maps. It's about priorities. Don't get me started on div cards. You're comparing apples to oranges here. I don't quite understand your point. I'm fucking possible to balance around the unregulated economy that we have. GG really needs to address the reasonable expectations from the player as well as many systems. GG don't give a fuck about endgame players. In a sense they do, in a sense they don't. Different people in different areas don't. Different people in different areas do. When it comes to making money, back into the context of retention, I don't think retention, I know what it means, but I don't think they care about retention. I don't think they care about how long people play the game for. They care about whether you're going to come back or not. And with the Harvest Manifesto changes, maybe some people won't come back. But the people that do come back to play a new league are then enticed by the new shiny MTXs, and then people buy the MTXs, and then that's how they make their money. They don't care if you're going to continue to play the league. They only care whether you're going to come back or not. Man, I feel like I've been rambling for far too long. This is supposed to be like a lot shorter video. Welcome to my second podcast episode where I just talk to myself about game mechanics. GG's to address reasonable expectations. I can feel my lips swelling up when I bit it. The game isn't balanced around as everyone like to throw what? What? Expectations from players as well as many systems that are breaking over time like lab. Implemented broken like div cards. You know, I half agree. I thought div cards were a 1-to-1. Like, if you got an X div card that dropped as a 1 stack, I assumed it would drop as frequently as an X. But as far as I can tell, based on like testing, div cards drop more frequently than the base item does, which is crazy. So I said I wouldn't do 10,000 cemeteries. And I'll probably continue to not do 10,000 cemeteries, but hey, it could be a good way to make money. There's no right way to play the game. You're supposed to just play whatever the fuck you enjoy. I enjoy farming large amounts of shit and testing stuff with spreadsheets and then reading all your comments. Even comments like this, I enjoy reading them. I don't enjoy making a shit ton of money. I don't enjoy mirror crafting. I don't enjoy running lab. I don't do the stuff I don't enjoy. There's no right way to play the game. The right way to play the game is to do what you like. Just saying. Emulator broken div card, something. And why if no one is going to solo farm 97% of them outside of SSF? Because you don't have... What? Which the game isn't balanced around as everyone would like to throw in the faces of SSF players. I don't understand this sentence at all. What's the point of them existing in their current state? You mean div cards? What's the point of div cards existing? The game's RNG, right? That's why people like it, apparently. If you want something deterministic... I mean, I really enjoyed... I'm going to spin it back into bloody Bestiary. Bestiary used to be deterministic, and now it's RNG, and I'm really upset. Div cards are the closest thing you'll get to deterministic item obtaining. The reason why they exist in their current state is because people paid money for them, and GGG have kind of like bottlenecked themselves into keeping them in the game because people have paid money for them. So if you're gonna pay for something and then they're like, oh, we're changing how all this shit works, don't you think everyone who's paid for one would be pissed off? They've kind of shot themselves in the foot, granted. But what's the point of div cards existing in their current state? But exactly what I said. Oh man, make them untradeable and up the drop rates. I mean, I thought that'd be a good fix for Harvest. Keep Harvest how it is. Increase the capacity from 10 to 100 and make items that you harvest craft untradeable. But apparently untradeable items is against GGG's policy, so your untradeable div cards and up the drop rates isn't realistic, and neither is untradeable Harvest. Fuck, I agree. All these systems are interwoven with each other as far as itemization goes, which is why I bring them up. Everything works together with the way that they've coded items, which I think is cool, but it also brings in lots of bugs. But I think things are built independently on just a modular system, which is cool for coding and terrible for like game mechanics. Like Gog's little list he had of endgame things, like his flowchart. It shows like all these different ways that endgame options are interwoven with each other, but when you look at it, there isn't really that much difference. And I could show you, but I'd flashbang you with green, and I don't want to do that. But man, I hope I summed up basically my second Electric Boogaloo Harvest #2 shenanigans. The main thing I wanted to get out there was how I think that it's going from like a 3-step system to a 4-step system, and I think that that's a good thing, because most people weren't getting to the end of the 3rd step anyway. They were getting halfway to the end of the 3rd step, and it's only the endgame people I think are getting nerfed in the harvesting. This is far too late to be part of the harvest discussion, but I don't care, because I'm not here to try and get views, and I'm not here to fucking make money. I'm here to just like voice my opinion in a way that I can only do using my voice instead of writing down with text, because I'm shit at putting things into words, which is why something that it took me 30 seconds to say just then took me 31 minutes, 32 minutes to say just now, and I'm sorry for wasting your time, but thanks.